is the Page Publishing Book Club. Good evening. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini, along with my only friend here at midnight, my engineer, Rob Barretts. Ooh, beware the Ides of March. It's March 15th-ish, right? Yeah. I say embrace the Ides of March. It means summer can't be far. Everything's always better when it's sunny and warm, don't you think? Yeah. If you find yourself in a spring writing slump, hang on. Just hang on till summer. There's a good chance you'll get it back. If you're looking for some inspiration, maybe it's in your own backyard. Some strange stuff is going down in Texas where our first author taught school for 22 years. She loved her 4th to 8th graders. And so that's who she was thinking about when she wrote what she describes as a futuristic Hardy Boys kind of mystery based on some real-life wacky events going on near her Texas ranch, which, by the way, isn't far from the ranch of former President George W. Bush.
This is about an alien that comes and it has to take the form of a cat that is a very special cat. And we do have some very unusual animals out here. And one of them looks just like this cat that I used in the book. But it's not just that. It's I think, a heartwarming type of story because it talks about a man who's lost his wife, and here he's having to deal with this newcomer on his place, and his grandsons come to help him. And when they finally figure out that this is not just a little panther or a little cat, and they realize how complicated it is, and pretty soon the ranch is hopping. And since it's taking place about maybe 80 years from now, there is a government lab that is dealing with biological warfare that is the way that the terrorists have finally gotten into the United States. And these labs were set up, and they pretty much have that under control, but the labs stayed active because of because there have been more and more alien spottings. And by the way, there have been over here in Stephenville, Clifton area. And they have to decide what to do because one of the men in the labs is his own power and his own fame. And so when they go over to Waco to turn in some samples they've gotten from the green glittery substance that comes out of the animal. And the interaction as Grandpa Rex just sees that this animal is so unusual, the interactions are funny, I think, and I think things that the alien does and when he interacts with the people there on the ranch as it gets more and more active. There's a lot of danger involved, not only locally, but it's going to affect everyone in the world. And there's another aspect of the story that's important. The tree, and it is right here, and we have had it looked at. The tree here on the place, that has quite a history, ends up being the incubator, if you will, something that allows these aliens to reproduce because they're not male or female, but they do reproduce. And the only way this one's going to make it back is if he has more come to help him reconstruct the vehicle which he came to Earth in and landed over by Lake Waco.
Beverly, this sounds so detailed. Have you encountered aliens?
Well, not one-on-one, no. People have spotted things around here. If you Google up the Texas Triangle UFO, there's neighbors that have said they have seen it.
You just have so much detail,
Well, it's almost a historical fiction, except it's in the future and it's a mystery and everything's been changed. And like I said, I'm actually more of an academic person and usually write on, to put in psychological and theological types of writings. And this is just for fun, and I did it mainly for kids, like I said, that I had taught because I love that age. And I also did it for my grandsons. And it's interesting, the one grandson that read it exactly the age that I was trying to reach, and he loved it. Yeah. So that told me that, okay, well, maybe I'll just do another one and follow up.
So you don't care if you make any money? You just...
Oh, heavens, no.
But you went to the trouble to get it published. Why?
Yeah, I wanted to just put it in a form that I could, give it to my grandson.
Just writing for the love. All for the love. Take note of that. Nothing will give you writer's block faster than writing for, say, money. There's no doubt about that. Write for love. Write because it's a message you just feel so compelled to get out there. You can't wait to put it down on the paper and forget about it because you don't know what's going to happen. I got to tell you, though, if I thought I had aliens living near me, taking the form of cats and living in my tree, I would either be writing like a sci-fi horror flick or I'd be out of there. I wouldn't even live there. Our next author, Charles Brimmer, wrote a book with an interesting title. It's called Clinton, Not on My Watch.
Yeah, it could be confusing if you look at the title and think it's about the Clintons,
Well,
which it's not. No, it's about Clinton, Iowa.
what about Clinton, Iowa?
Well, it's a crime novel, and it involves a really great guy as sheriff. Well, his name is Bert Siegel, and his buddy who owns a garage and a mechanic shop, whose name is Gus Olson, and the two of them find a murdered body in Gus Olson's backyard, and it escalates from there, and it's just a page-turner. There's all kinds of incidents that happen in it, and by the end of the book, there was a Al-Qaeda takedown. The whole Al-Qaeda cell went down because of their diligence.
What kind of research did you do to come up with this?
First of all, I spent some time in Clinton, Iowa. I met the people there because I was there on business, but I found them to be just a great bunch of people that I really liked them. And at the time, I was in my early 70s, and I was sitting out at the table on my porch one day, and my wife had talked to me about writing a book for years. She says, you tell such good stories. You ought to write a book. So I just sat there with a piece of paper and a pencil and started writing down about people I knew in my younger years, and I cloned them and put them into the book. So everybody that's in the book is somebody I've known. I just, transformed them with different names and different jobs.
So your wife was your inspiration.
Oh, yeah. She's always my inspiration. She's awesome.
And then once she convinced you to tell your stories on paper, that was it. You were off.
Well, yeah, I was. As a matter of fact, I finished writing that book in about 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, once I got started, I just couldn't shut it down. Kept going from one thing to another. And when I started writing it, I really wasn't planning on writing a published novel. But after it was finished and a couple of people we knew read it, they said, you got to publish this. You have to publish this. This is one great book. So we got it published after a couple of years of trying to find out how. It's not easy to get a book published unless I don't know if you know who Dennis Miller is. You probably do. I listened to him on talk radio, and he plugged this Page Publishing in New York and gave the number, and I called Page Publishing, and they told me to send the manuscript in. In a week or two, we'll let you know whether we'll publish it or not. Well, in 3 days, or 4 days, whatever it was, they called me back and said, guess what? 5 out of 5 of our reviewers gave a unanimous yes, we want to publish this book.
That feels good, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it felt great. Imagine I've worked really hard since I was 14 years old and never gave it a thought that I was even capable of writing a novel. But now it's a series, and I have the 3rd book written. The 2nd one is being edited right now. The 3rd book is written, but it isn't close to editing yet. I got to do a few rewrites and stuff. And I had to start on a 4th book.
You really are going with this. Good for you.
Oh, I've almost come to believe I'm an author.
Charles, you are an author, and one who had no idea he could write anything until he matured, so to speak. And now you're clearly on a roll. And what's most important, you really, really love it. And I don't know how many people can say that they are thoroughly enjoying what they do every single day. How many, Rob? Rob's loving it. Rob loves being here at midnight with me, I'll tell you that. And he heard about this whole thing on a talk show. He heard about Page Publishing on a talk show. How about that? All right, our next author found an interesting way to make veggies more palatable when his son was a little boy. Stanley Brown wrote The Quest.
The Quest is a romantic fantasy. It's a story within a story. The main characters in it are elves and dwarfs and gnomes and fairies and goblins, and that's about it.
Where'd you get the idea for this?
Actually, there's a backstory to it. When my youngest son was little, he didn't like to eat his vegetables. As a matter of fact, he would pick the mushrooms and green peppers out of his spaghetti sauce. And then he'd sit there and wait until either his mother or I got tired of seeing him there and let him go. But I found out one day that if I told him a story, he would get involved in the story and he'd eat everything. I couldn't sit at the table with him. I had to be cleaning up or doing something otherwise. And then he would eat. And if he stopped, I would say, finish up. And he, being afraid that I wouldn't finish the story, would eat everything. So one day, about 5 years ago, I was talking to him. That happened like 35 years ago. One day, about 5 years ago, I was talking to a friend, and I'm not sure how the subject came up, but we got on to that subject. I mentioned that I had told him a number of stories, and she said, well, you should write a children's book. Well, there was a number of stories, and I wasn't sure whether I should write one book with a bunch of stories or a bunch of books, each one with a single story. Luckily, I didn't do either because I found out that right now the market is glutted with children's stories. So anyhow, I sat down, not knowing that, I sat down to write it. And when I started writing, the story kind of took over and wrote itself. And as I write, I've discovered that I have no idea what's going to happen next. Yeah, I just kept writing. Sometimes I'd have a vague idea of what was going to happen next, and sometimes I didn't. I did most writers. I'm not sure about whether they're fiction writers or not fiction, but that I've spoken to is interesting. The ones that write the fiction tell me the same things, and the one that don't say, no, they don't write that way. They make an outline, and they just fill in the outline.
It depends. It depends on the story. It depends on your emotions. It depends on the kind of person you are. You know, I think everybody's got their own way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. But the other fiction writers that I've spoken to all say the same thing, that they sit down and write a story, and usually it changes.
Mm-hmm. Did an end that you liked come to you?
Yeah, you got to remember now that my story is a story within a story.
Oh, that's right.
So if you only read the first few pages and the last 2 pages, then you miss the main part of the inner story.
Okay.
I like the end that I wrote, and actually I've given the book to 4 other friends. I picked younger women and older women, and younger men and older men,
okay,
and told them to read it and to tell me what they thought about it. Not what they thought I wanted to hear, but what they actually thought about it. And every one of them has said that they liked it. So once I heard that, I started looking for a publisher.
Okay.
I happened to see a commercial on cable one day for Page Publishing. That was it. I sent the story a USB flash drive, and apparently they liked it because he called me back a few days later and said, yeah, we want to publish it.
Stanley says once he started writing, it just poured out of him, and he can't stop now. And it's funny, sometimes writers think that there's a certain script that you're supposed to follow. You know, do you do an outline? Do you just write what comes through your mind? I don't necessarily think there is a right way to write. My mom, she's an English teacher. She always told me writing is rewriting, but ultimately your style is going to be as different as all the books that are already out there. Uh-oh, Mr. Music tells me it's time to take a break. Just a quick break. We're going to come right back with some more real-life people with real-life stories about some real interesting stuff to help you get on your way to writing your first book. So go pop some popcorn and come back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
You still with me? You still there? Hello? Come in. This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Thanks for coming back. Sometimes life's, you know what, right? It's an effort to put one foot in front of the other, let alone sit down and write a book. Well, our next author, Kathy Elmore, is the kind of person who tries never to let life get her down, and she shares how she manages to stay positive in her book called Soulmates.
I've always been the kind of person to just move forward with my life, no matter what happens. You know, what happens, you deal with it, you move on. And that's the way I've always been. You know, that comes from my grandmother instilling that in me when I was young. You know, tomorrow's a new day, you know, everything's going to get better. And if it can help a person by reading my story, that's what I want. Ultimately, that's what I want, to help another person that's going through similar things that I went through.
What is it exactly that you went through?
Well, I was a victim of rape. I was also abducted when I was 14. And then I met, my husband, and we were high school sweethearts, and got married at 17, and he basically, he saved my life, in a way. And we had a really good marriage, and, he ended up dying at the age of 39 from HIV complications, which we didn't know he had. And then a month before he did die, I found out I was infected with HIV as well. But, I don't really care about that. All I cared about was like, okay, that's fine, great. You gave me the news, you gave me the results, let's just move on. Come on, what's the treatment? Medications, give it to me. Let's go. I'm a very sensitive person. I guess you would say I'm a medium. I speak the spirit and get messages delivered to people that I come in contact with. And that's been that way all my life. Yeah, I was 12 and I died on the operating table from a ruptured appendix that my brother gave me when he punched me in the stomach.
So this book has been brewing inside of you for a very long time.
My whole life, yes. That's just the tip of the iceberg right there,
And if you can get through it, so can anybody else.
That's correct. Even, you just have to have a very strong will. And, my fiance that I'm with right now, who I met, and I can't believe I met another soulmate this one lifetime, I'm truly blessed.
Any particular reason why you wrote this now?
Well, I had a dream. This was about a year ago, and I believe strongly in my dreams. I was watching the American Graffiti, on a big screen, and I looked closely at the screen. It was actually my life that was playing out on the big screen. And I woke up and was like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's exactly it. A lot of other things led up to that point, and then I woke up that morning. I just started writing. I wrote for 6 to 8 hours a day. Wow. For 3-4 months straight, I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and deleted and rewrote. So yeah, that's what led to this, and my dream as well. And I know it's going to become a movie and to help even more people to heal.
No, people can't believe the kind of lives. We all think our lives are so rough, and we don't even have a clue a lot of times. Some of the stuff that people, you meet somebody, you get to know people, you think you know people, you have no idea what they're carrying.
No, you don't.
So
everybody has different things in their life. That choose different paths. Whatever path that may be, and we all have problems. It's life. It's a 4-letter word, right?
I like that, Kathy.
It's a 4-letter word for a reason. You didn't know. So you can't live in the past. You have to move forward. Yep. You always got to constantly be moving forward. Yep. And that's how I feel. Okay, the next thing. Next. Next, let's go. Next.
Kathy says she's got some book signings coming up, and she is determined to turn this book into a movie so she can spread her message that you can go on no matter how dark it gets in your life. I like her adage, though. Life isn't a 4-letter word for nothing. I like that. I think I'm going to put that on my refrigerator or something. Finally, did you ever want to be a federal agent? I know you did. Our next author, Armin Ali, right here in New York City, wrote a book all about that. Armin, I like your title.
Oh, thanks. It's not too original, but many years ago, I used to give these kind of little lectures at different colleges and universities upon request. I said, hey, it's probably a good idea to document it. How to become a federal special agent and what you had to do to get the job.
So you are a federal special agent?
I was.
How was that?
It had its ups and downs, but, the good thing about it is that you kind of can retire early, with a pension and can do something else.
Are you ever put in danger?
Oh, several times. But the nature of my job was not, strictly like law enforcement. It was dangerous, sometimes during field duty or something like that. But as a U.S. probation officer with the organization that I retired from, it's more blend of a little bit of social work and law enforcement at the same time. So it just wasn't kind of like lock them up and throw away the key, kind of a job, which I kind of liked that because you kind of had an even chance to, protect the community, and you could also maybe turn around some lives and save some lives,
Well, that's very nice of you. How many people think that way?
Well, in that particular kind of job, you have to, or it's not the job for you. And in the book, I try to explain that there are different aspects of federal law enforcement, and some are a little more kind of social work oriented. Some of them are just strictly kick down the door and put the cuffs on them and try to put them away as long as you can. Right. I kind of like have a opportunity to help people that were drug addicted or kind of unemployed and was stealing because they didn't have any money. Right. So you got them a saleable skill and they got a job, then the whole life improves. You get them off of drugs and they get in recovery. Their life turns around.
And that feels good when you can do that for someone.
Yeah, so that was the blend of those two. Of course, if someone was out there taking down banks and robbing, people and hurting people, then you'd have to, of course, incapacitate. So you did have that, that other role that you had to take care of.
What's the biggest misconception about trying to be a federal special agent?
I guess other kind of jobs like FBI, Homeland Security, Secret Service. I have, I have friends and acquaintances in all of those different law enforcement groups, and they're able to tell me really kind of on the inside, what the job's all about, and the good points and the bad. Different ways to get your foot in the door is basically kind of to start off in a support position, in a lot of the agencies. Right. If you wanted to be a special agent and you were in college, maybe you might want to become, an intelligence specialist, let's say for the FBI, if your sights were on that particular FBI career. Right. Special agent. So you might become an intelligence analyst or intelligence specialist, and kind of works, on the night shift or the twilight shift, and by the time you get your degree, all they have to do is basically kind of update your background investigation for the academy. Huh. So they would pick from within a lot quicker than going from someone cold off the street. A lot of young college students don't know where they want to go for the career path. I've been sending it out to a lot of bookstores that have liberal arts and sciences curriculum.
Okay.
Because, they don't really kind of end that study curriculum in order to kind of figure out where they want to go.
Right.
So, law enforcement is a pretty stable career, and I remember I did 25 years with the courts and another 12 years as a FBI background investigator, and also as a correction officer when I was in college. So, never had any type of threat of being laid off, or as a matter of fact, when things started getting tough with the economy, your job kind of gets more stable.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Well, yeah, because people get nuts.
Right, and they lose their job, and
Right.
they start to think of ways that they're trying to get some income in there, whether it's good or bad.
Good to know. A job that's actually more secure the worse things get. Armin has a specific audience that he's going for here, and that's something I just want to make mention of. It really does make things a whole lot easier for him. I'm not going to lie to you. Having experience in something as intriguing, and I guess you could say kind of sexy, the idea of being a federal agent, and going undercover and all that kind of stuff, that appeals to people. It certainly appeals to people in college trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives, and it kind of narrows down his audience. So he can go to a college, he can set up a table, he can attract college kids, he can talk to them, kids that have an idea of, that's what they want to do. He's sitting right there. So he's going to have like a little bit of an easier time than, let's say, somebody who wrote a book of poems. But it's just another example of, trying to think about what you do that you can write about that maybe a lot of people don't know about, that can increase your chances of selling a book, but not necessarily. I think the moral of the story is, if you've always wanted to do it, you got to take a stab at it, because you never know. That's all the time we have. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight on the Page Publishing Book Club. Thank you, Rob. I love you, Rob. And if you haven't already, you really have to check out WOR's new morning show with Len Berman and Todd Schnitt. Don't you just love it, Rob? It's hilarious. It's like a morning zoo for adults, for grown-ups. Like, you get your news, you get your info, and some fun stuff along the way. Check it out right here on 710 WOR. In the meantime, your computer's calling.